So for our project, we wanted to have a PS2 type look to our character select screen. I was tasked with making the background assets along with our stat menu. So for the two characters, I first wanted to give them two different color schemes. I went obviously for my model with blue and lighter undertones. And then for John's, I did a more dark red and a darker black undertone. And I think I just wanted to it's just an easy way to distinguish between the characters visually. Um, I also did created a pattern overlay, just making a simple circle and creating a tinier circle, and it's supposed to mimic LED screens, um, to mimic the older television look. Um, I wanted to give it more dimension, thus I have a on mine I have a white line in the middle, kind of blurred together. And then for John's, I would have a red one in the front. For the stat menus, I just used created a rectangle shape using Photoshop's tools. I just added our text, so strength, dexterity, intellect, stamina, luck, and charisma. This was really fun because we got to talk about which ones we thought would be most would have higher stats at, which was fun to do. Um, yeah, and the bars are just a simple rectangle tool, and same with the blue ones as well. Um, yeah, I wanted to again, all the stuff I did for the visual of the background was to emphasize more of an old school type of video game look. And yeah, that's all for the video back ground assets.
Now moving on to how to 3D model your scans.
Yeah, so for the way we 3D modeled our scans is that we used John's phone, his iPhone, and then we used the app Scaniverse, as you can see on screen right now. So the user app is really easy. First, you need to click the plus button in the middle. Then you want to click Mesh, classic mode with more export options. Then you want to click on Medium Object. And here's where you want to adjust the camera for a bit. You want to allow it to capture the range first before using. Um, so now, after it's adjusted a bit, as you can see with the lasers, we then can scan an object, which we would then do after we press the red button. And as you can see, there's red lines on the screen. Once you move them around, you just want to capture the object in all angles to get the best view you can of it. Um, and yeah, this was a bit difficult to do with our 3D models of ourselves just because of lighting issues. Also, as you'll see later on, black does not go really too well with the 3D model software, or 3D scanning software, and also the poses that we do, or specifically that I do, is a bit difficult to clean up, and it wasn't able to scan perfectly.
All right, so moving on to the code. Oh, sorry. Or after done 3D modeling, you would eventually put in all your files into the the sketchbook in processing, which would basically look like this. Each had three models per. Give me 1 second. If I could show. So each 3D model looks a little different. We will see a little bit about that later. You can see this is the material file. This is the actual OBL or wave port. And then we have the JPEG file for the actual colors and imaging. Each one would be different. You would have your background uh, PNG file. You would also have your overlay, which would look like that right there. And now moving on to the actual code itself. So with the code, uh, we had about, this isn't totally accurate because there are a lot of spaces. We had about 300 lines of code. So starting from the top, we have the import processing sound code, which imports the processing sound library for audio playback, which recognizes the audio files in which would be this one, these two files, the selected and switch files, and in the next few codes would be the arrays to hold the 3D models for each type of model. I labeled them male and female for simplicity's sake. So that would be that. The next few codes would be indexes to track current, last, and the next models, which will be explained later. This is to flag whether or not which group is up. You can always change what it's actually called. It doesn't have to be male or female. It could be one, two, three, four. You can go up to as many as you could think of. You can create as many subsets. Uh, these would be the the pieces of code or the declaration. Sorry, that's the word. Declaration for each uh, overlay and background. So the next would be the actual rotation of the models, and then this would track your mouse. Next would be the speed for each of the rotation and that would also include this. The timing and direction, which will be explained later when we actually show you, is controlled through this. Then we have the UI flags for selection and next character notice, which will pop up a text to say, hey, you selected this character, or show the character's next character and how long it will be. This is the overlay pulse size and speed. And then we have the selected switch sound, which would declare what the actual sound file would be called. And then we have the font. So now for our setup, it's actually, again, this can change depending on how you want it to be. We made it to 1280 to 720 just for simplicity's sake. Then we have the actual male models and the female models, which if you want to add more models, all you would need to do is change this number and then copy male models. For example, we could do this, change that to a 3, and then change the name of this file to something different, to a different OBJ. However, we're not going to do that because we do not have another model. You would also change this to 4 instead of 3, and then this reflects it uh, as well. That's another subset. This would load the background and overlay for the images. This will also make the sound effects and set the font. This would return the active model array, which means it will switch from male or female. This basically does the same thing, just the opposite way. Then we have the void draw. This would set the background to black to make it easier to have things not clip. And then we have the handle character transition animation, which uh, is is hard to explain, so it's better for a visual that I'll show you. And this will handle the group transition, which means each of these models will switch out depending on what key you press. Now, this will draw the background transition, meaning it'll fade in and out. It won't just jump cut. That's what all this is. All of this actually. And then we have the the model rotation using our mouse, and then drawing the actual 3D models would be these, all of this, and then in this we have the uh the actual transition of the new models and the current models, which means the model currently on screen or the model that will be sliding in and the model sliding out. So now this is the actual overlay that will pulse in and out, showing people, hey, I use your mouse keys to go left or right. Uh, that's what all this is. Uh, this these this section of code will is basically just if selected, this character will show up, or this set of text, which would be selected and next character. Now, key pressed. This is the section of code that recognizes what keys you press and what it'll do specifically. So, for example, we have the left arrow key, which will say previous character, right arrow key, which would be next character, and then we have M for male, F for female, and then to select the model, we have space or enter. So this would be this technically, there's two different ways to put space. It would be this and just an actual space itself. And then we have enter and return. Now, this would ease in the smooth transition, which will be explained next. Start dragging mouse on press and stop dragging. Now, the actual character selection screen. So now, this is where it starts. So if you cannot see my mouse, which I don't remember how to fix, but if you use your mouse, you can drag it and it would look like that. And if you can see, Aries' hair doesn't actually, it kind of clips off because how Scaniverse scanned her, or sorry, their hair. Uh, so that would be next character. Again, Scaniverse didn't really do a great job with their hair because of the color it was. Black is harder to see depth with. Now, if we click um, M, this is what it would look like. Now it switches over. Go. And then next. As you can see, the iPad that I'm using kind of doesn't get recognized either. However, black t-shirts work for some reason. Now, if you hit space or enter, that's the selected. And then, as you heard earlier, the keystrokes of left and right. And that is all. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.